Not an ideal start for Team India, but they managed to claw their way back through all contributions in the middle and the lower middle order to get themselves to a very respectable 265. Right till the end, there were boundaries being hit even in the last over. So, despite what happened in the first 15 overs, India have managed to find their way back. And this is what it looks like. Shreyas Iyer was looking good for three figures. He got 80. Pant was looking good for three figures. He got 56 or 54. And what a cameo that was from Deepak Chahar. Again, we keep reiterating it just a day ahead of those big auctions, with everybody looking for people with that extra string to their bow. And certainly it was already known. Doesn't hurt to put it on the table less than 24 hours before the auction. Let's get our Cricbuzz Live panel in. Shaun Pollock, Dinesh Karthik. Gentlemen, for a change, I'm allowed to gloat just a little bit, if I may, about the 265, because it doesn't often happen. We have a 15-run window, but by some coincidence, I managed to get it on the button.
Well done, GB.
But really, from India's point of view, it was just a matter of saying that, okay, if we've lost those early wickets, it should be a 300 type surface, but we don't want to repeat our mistakes of 237. So that kind of averaged out, which is the logic I used in a sense.
I'll go for this. Absolutely, you're right there. Considering how the wicket played in the first game and the second game, a very similar looking wicket. I heard the same strip is being used. So credit to West Indies again, plugging India back with 3 wickets. But the beauty about this Indian team right now is the middle order firing and yet again and showing the world why they are such a good team.
Yeah, that was our chat on Cricbuzz Combox. I mean, you lose Rohit Sharma, Shikhar Dhawan, Virat Kohli, first time since 2013 at Kingsmead in Durban, when they scored less than 20 collectively, and India recovered from that. They didn't recover against South Africa, but they've posted 265 here, Shaun.
Yeah, they have, and it's a competitive total. And against the West Indies, you're probably thinking you should be able to win the game or defend that. But yeah, I still think in many ways it's sort of under par. Even once they'd lost those 3 wickets, the partnership that those two put together got them into a situation where they were back on track to get at least 280, maybe even somewhere near 300. And there's the partnership of 110. And you've got to say that this missiles of Iyer, Pant, Yadav, all 3 of them were a little bit soft in the context of the game. Rishabh Pant had played a brilliant shot over the wicket, trying to cut something that was nowhere near cuttable. Even Shreyas Iyer had done so brilliantly to get himself to 80. It just seemed like the shot really wasn't on. The one that he got out to, he had taken his time and looked to be the backbone of the innings and should have definitely got a 3-figure score. And Surya Kumar would also be disappointed because he just needed to bat normally for 5 or 6 overs, get himself in, set himself to be able to launch at the back end. And then if he had had the other contributions of the other 2 guys. So I suppose that's maybe looking at it from a coach's perspective. There hasn't been 100 in the Dravid era yet. No one's gone on to get that 3-figure score, which I'm sure he'll be surprised at. And I do think at times you've got to actually search for, like, how do you get the maximum out of what you want to do on a different day? So 265 competitive may be enough, should be enough. But I think they've sold themselves a little bit short on what they could have achieved.
Yeah, sometimes, DK, you can define par by not the surface, but by the opposition you're playing and the frailty of their batting lineup. But again, that can only be told when the innings finishes. But if you look at this whole contribution lower in the order, Shaun and I were talking about the parallel between the second and third games, 3 wickets falling, then a big partnership, then another 2 wickets falling. What India didn't get in that second game was the kind of innings we saw from both Washington Sundar and Deepak Chahar.
Yes, I think that's been the best part about this innings. Number 4 to number 8 scoring more than 75% of India's total. It doesn't happen too often, but when it does, I think it's a good sign. It's a very ominous sign. You can see why Deepak Chahar and Washington Sundar are throwing their hands up as all-rounders and batting really well, sensibly too. And it was good to see them stitch together a lovely partnership.
Yeah, it certainly was. That will stand India in good stead. But what it also leads to, Shaun, is the entire discussion about that middle order, the 4, 5, and 6. And I think if we try and put in perspective with some numbers, it'll make some sense. So let's have a look at this and see if we can get a discussion going on the entire topic of who's done what in that particular slot and who's ideal looking at that 2023 World Cup with all the contenders who have been thrown in. Where should Rishabh Pant bat? Shreyas Iyer, is he ideal? Have a look at this, Shaun.
Yeah, I think throw Surya Kumar into the mix there as well, and then you've got Hardik Pandya coming back. I just think you've got the personnel. It's just deciding on who they are, and almost learning their roles over the next 18 months as to how they need to play, what situations mean that I stick in and try and just get a score, what situations mean that I become nice and aggressive and try and post a little bit more, and if I have to finish, have I got that ability to do so? I think you guys had an issue with the number 4 going to the last World Cup. I think this time around you've almost got too many people to consider, and it does come a time in the near future where you actually have to bank on a certain 2 or 3 individuals in that middle order and stick with them. So once everyone's fit and ready and raring to go, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I mean, DK would have a better opinion about all those different names, that pie chart of a note.
I love this. I love this. It's colorfully put, but if you look at it, it's there's a bit of a science to it, DK, as well. The bigger boxes versus the smaller boxes, but it does tell a story right in front of us, and you can talk us through this, DK.
Yeah, if you do see what's obvious is the fact that we have not seen Hardik and Jadeja's name do too much there, too much of the rounds there. Though I know Hardik's played quite a bit of innings, but in the little innings that he's played, he's done well. I believe that Shreyas is doing a fabulous job, and pretty much what we see is what we're going to get in terms of the team, even leading up to the World Cup. If you do see the names there, Shreyas Iyer is bulk of the batting at number 4. KL Rahul has done a lot of the batting at number 5, and Hardik Pandya at 6. And you might get a feeling that it could be very similar. Obviously, Surya Kumar there will be around in the team for sure. And then, we have to add Jadeja post that. So that's a very, very strong batting lineup to contend with. I think that's something that India will be very, very happy with. And with a few of the all-rounders also on these days, the Shardul Thakur, Deepak Chars and Washington Sundar doing their bit. So it looks like India are finding bowlers who can bat a bit, which is good. And their depth of the batting increases, and it's always a good feeling as a captain to have that kind of depth. But the players there, the names that you see right at the top with those big colors, if you might say so, I think they are the ones that stand out pretty evidently there. We are going to see more of that. The top every column, barring Kedar Jadhav in the last. I think everybody else there, you're going to see KL and Shreyas and Rishabh, and Hardik Pandya and Jadeja will be the next names there. So I think that's a well-rounded unit there, and we're seeing some good players there, and it's pretty straightforward in terms of who's going to be part of that team coming in 2023.
Yeah, I think that's what you're looking forward to. Shaun Pollock made the point about how different it is from 2019, where we were talking about the number 4 slot, but it's not that we had a huge amount of contenders for it. Now it just seems like there are too many contenders, Shaun. But the one lineup, as DK pointed out, that looks the most ideal is Shreyas, Rahul, Hardik. That sounds very settled at 4, 5, and 6. But then where do you go for Rishabh Pant?
Yeah, you can't settle it because you don't have a wicketkeeper. You can't not have the wicket. I think the best for me would be Kohli 3. Then I like KL Rahul at 4. I'd like Rishabh Pant at 5 and Hardik Pandya at 6. That would be the best. And then that means that Shreyas and Surya miss out for now. But for me, I think that's just the right combination. I think there's enough power there. There's a left-hander in the middle as well, and hitability at the back. And then you follow that with Jadeja, and it really looks like a good batting unit. Anyway, that's my 5 cents worth.
Dare I say, DK, and since you're also part of the fraternity, there are 2 Rahuls in this particular Indian squad. A few years ago, just to make sure the balance of the Indian lineup was right, Rahul Dravid started keeping. Is there even a case at some point in time for KL Rahul to do the same, just to get that lineup, just to push in an extra all-rounder or a batsman?
No, definitely not. Rishabh Pant is doing a fabulous job. Even today, he's got a brilliant 50, had a very good strike rate, and he actually set the tone in that batting, and he batted well. And when he does bat like this, you can see what an impact he has. It's hard to bowl to him, and then Shreyas Iyer just piggybacked on him till the time he was around, and then took over after Rishabh Pant left. 50s, but the 50 that was more authoritative, and the one that obviously played a lot more shots, and have to say was Rishabh Pant, and he's a very crucial member in this team. And you got to understand he's the only left-hander as well in the top six, so that makes a massive difference as well. So when I say only left-hander, obviously I'm including Shikhar Dhawan. I'm saying the middle order, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's the only one, and then at 7 there's Jadeja. So you want a left-hander there. So I think he's a very important cog in the wheel, and it's very difficult. We have been around Indian setups a lot, and it is very difficult to choose a predicted team that's going to happen next World Cup in 2023, in 2022, a year earlier. It's never happened. I'm pretty sure there'll be a few more changes to this team that's just playing on the park today.
Fair point. I'm glad I got an answer like that. It was meant to be a question that would fire up Dinesh Karthik to say, how dare you even suggest that? And that was exactly what the nature of that rather silly question was. But I just thought the Rahul connection felt good. It just sounded good. Let's keep it at that. But let's go to the West Indies. I know it's 265. It's a lot more than it was in the second game. They couldn't chase the 237 down. Will they do that for now? Let's have a look at their bowling. Shaun, full marks to them early on. Did they let anything slip? Because the other day, 237 could have been even less than that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have any issues with them. The only issues I would have is, 18 wides in total. That was where the discipline let them down. Hayden Walsh, you do feel for him. I thought he was really good until that last over when Chahar got hold of him. Probably one over too many at that stage, because that in the bottom order there, you decide, okay, I'm going to pick on an over. We're going to start at some stage, and that was the over they decided to go. So, I can't blame any of the fast bowlers. I think they were good again up front, set a tone, picked up those 3 wickets, really hold their nerve as spinners in the middle. I just think the wides would be the disappointment for them, but it's time for the batters now to do their job.
Yeah, interesting. Reading that bowling card, DK, normally you find at least one bowler at some point over 50 overs will have gone for more than a run a ball. Not a single bowler. So I think we talked about consistency, and we'll talk about that in a moment with batting. How about consistency in the bowling? Not a single bowler with an economy of 6+.
That's fabulous, and as you said, it's very rare to see. You got to understand, if we had seen any of the other top 4-5 teams in ODI cricket, 265 is a gettable target. That's what happens when they talk about getting early wickets, getting obviously putting a dent in the opponent. That's what they mean, those early wickets, and that's what they got. And then obviously there's international cricket. People have experience. They come, they play a nice knock, and they'll settle the team down. And at the end, there's a bit of a push, and you came to around 240 to 265. But that's a great score much earlier. But these days, 265 is very gettable, considering the last 10 overs, people fancy themselves getting, 80, 85 runs at an easy pace. So, we got to understand that getting to 180, 185 in 40 overs is literally like 4.5 runs and over. So most teams would fancy this chase, because it is West Indies and they have a track record with their batting, which shows that probably they haven't batted that well. We are feeling that maybe 265 is a high score, and probably, they bowled an extra too many. But for me, I mean, most teams, if you ask them at the start of the day, are you happy keeping India to 265? I think they would say yes.
Yeah, but I guess if in the same breath you ask them, but you guys will have got Rohit, Kohli and Shikhar out for a cumulative score of 19. Oh, then it should have been 180. But what it is what it is. Shaun Pollock, the West Indies batting once again will be relying on one man, Shea Hope. And if I'm not sure if his numbers would suggest otherwise, but they're certainly a lot better than his reliability is suggesting, in a sense.
Yeah, Shea needs to give them more hope at the top of the order, that's for sure. It hasn't been a tour to be proud of. Look at his stats in 2022. There's a real worry. Strike rate down at 72, only averaging 26, just the 135 runs. Yes, he's only played the 5 matches, but he needs to come good. They need someone. They need a pillar to build the foundation around. And I mean, he's been the one who's done it for them over the years. You can see the other facts and figures as you look up that graphic. he hasn't come good, and I think it's time. It really is time. I don't know what the sort of chats are in the dressing room, whether you say to him, if you know the individual, you say to him, listen, give yourself a little bit more time, look to be a bit selective about what you go after, maybe don't get ahead of yourself, watch a few balls go past. Whatever it may be, they have to have a chat with him to try and get him into a good space.
He's an interesting character, DK. One thing we don't see him. I mean, almost everybody tries their hand at T20 cricket. He's one of them, particularly in that West Indies Test/ODI setup, who has steered as far away from T20 in most cases. So it's a format that he should consider his own.
True. What that stat does tell me is even when he had his good years and he batted so well at a good average and a very decent strike rate, West Indies struggled even then. So they go on and require more than just Hope doing well. If they want to have any chance of this game, they have some names in the middle orders which needs to stand up, and I'm sure they're aware of it. And they have a few all-rounders right at the bottom who are doing a decent job. So I think it's the top order and the middle order which needs to contribute, and I don't think they can only depend on Hope. I know they're hoping Hope would succeed, but I think that's going to be rather unfair on him, because he's not batting obviously to the strike rates and the averages that he's used to. He's having one of those lean years. That's the kind of time the other members in the team should obviously stand up and help him.
And I think Gautam's frozen, and no, he hasn't.
Oh, I'm back. Did I disappear for a second?
You just went quiet on us, just for a brief second, which is very unusual for you. So that's why we're very concerned.
West Indian batsman, you just you didn't appear today.
All right. Well, there you go. I was talking about Hope and being the most spun name in the lineup. Fortunately, Shaun, for him, it seems to come up every time West Indies are in trouble, which is pretty much all the time. So you're always using it in the same way. Do West Indies have any hope? Well, as long as Shea is there, they do. But DK is right. They need Shea to maybe bat around some of the other players and somebody else to contribute, because he's always finding himself in a rescue act.
Yeah, he is, but you rely on certain individuals. I mean, you look at the Indian batting lineup. There's 2 guys or 3 guys at the top of the order that you hope will play well, and that you can build around it. And that's the same with the West Indies. Yes, they'll definitely want contributions. We've seen some guys striking it well down the bottom of the order, and that's why you've almost got to break it up into segments. So first 10 overs, what can we do? Can we get off to a fast start? Can we get a few boundaries just to settle things down? But then from 10 until 40, you need to get guys who just get in there. You're looking at Kuldeep Yadav hasn't played. How much cricket hasn't he played? So that period, we might get a few free deliveries to put away. The ball's going to get softer. But that's the thinking that needs to go in it. But the management and the coaching staff will be discussing that with him. It's now time for the players to take that on board and actually produce. It's not a big score, as DK touched on. 265 in one-day international in the modern era is probably like chasing 180 back in the day. So they should be able to do it if they apply themselves.
Yeah, application probably, realization of potential, another one. One more name before we talk about the Indian bowlers, Darren Bravo, DK. I mean, of course, he looks elegant. Even if he comes and scores a 4, it looks good. But what they want from him is him to just stay there, build some runs, build a big innings.
Absolutely. I think we all know he's got the skill. He's done well in Test cricket. We all know he bats a lot like Brian Lara, his mentor. He's a great guy. Beetle, as they call him. He's a solid player. He needs to come good for West Indies. If they need to obviously make a difference in this game and cross the line, he needs to obviously contribute. He's not had the best of series, and I'm sure he'll be ticking and trying his best.
Yeah, interesting character in T20 cricket. Hits more 6s than 4s. I mean, if you had to tick that box, you'd probably think of a lot of other West Indian players, but Darren Bravo's the man. More 6s than 4s. Now he'll need some 4s, some solidity in this lineup. Let's finish off with the Indian bowlers. Shaun Pollock last time around reckoned when they got 237 that India's just got too much class in the bowling lineup to be able to keep the West Indies down. Today it's 265, but as you said, Kuldeep Yadav coming back. So maybe he'll just need to be eased in. Will West Indies recognize that and go after him?
Yeah, I don't know if they'll be able to recognize that and go after him. And I only say that because of the fact that they first need to be very assured of themselves to do that. And if they've lost a lot of wickets leading into when Kuldeep comes to bowl, then they'll be under pressure. So a lot depends on how they get there. And then obviously the second question of whether they pick him under lights, whether they know which way it's turning. I know they're going to employ the sweep a lot. But to do all of this, you need a little bit of courage and confidence, and that's going to come with the way they bat on that particular day. So Kuldeep, of all the teams that's going around world cricket, I think he'll probably fancy himself doing well against this team. Obviously, slightly short on confidence, and he's probably coming back after an injury, and he'll be a little nervous himself.
Sean, Deepak Chahar comes in place of Shardul Thakur. He's done his bit with the bat. He's shown that he can contribute low down the order, but his main role is as a bowler. And he'll want to, after what Prasidh Krishna did in the previous game, Siraj is impressed. He'll want to stand up with no Bumrah around at the moment.
Yeah, when you look at the five, there's only been the five bowlers that are going to be used. Krishna and Siraj were good in the last game. Chahal comes in place of Chako. And for me, very similar kind of individuals. I think you'll get a similar kind of performance. I love his seam position. I love the movement he gets up front. So I think he's even probably more of an attacking option in those first 10 overs with regards to wicket-taking ability. Sundar's there, and the only difference will be Kuldeep Yadav and how he goes compared to Chahal. Chahal's been reliable enough. He's bowled nasty in those first two games. Will India have to turn to someone like a Rohit Sharma for an over or two? We'll have to wait and see. But there is that possibility with just the five bowlers that if you get into a strong position, you can put those guys under pressure. And you also don't know what you're going to get from Yadav in the middle overs. So it all goes down to solid start from the West Indies to really put them under pressure.
Yeah, it'll be a test of captaincy, because while we've praised Nicholas Puran, DK, the reason we've been able to praise him is because he's had a little leeway. He's had bowlers to choose from. He knows he has Odin Smith as an attacking option, but he can stop using him when he chooses to. Rohit doesn't have that luxury. So in a sense, a little extra test for him.
Yes, I think he obviously only has five bowlers to contend with, unless and until he sees Virat Kohli or Shreyas Iyer as an option, or Surya Kumar Yadav for that matter. The key right now, I think, is for him, what he's been really good at is rotating bowlers. He's given them short, sharp spells to the fast bowlers, given the spinners, brought them on at the right time. So I'm sure he'll be looking to do that, and they pick a couple of wickets. They know they're already on a roll, and they have the confidence. They won 2 games. All these things will obviously help him.
Yep. So it's going to be interesting. India with 5 bowlers, 2-0 up in the series, looking to make it 3-0. West Indies desperate to try and claw something back. And of course, their hands up for the activities to follow this weekend. Can't ignore any of that. That's all we have on the show right now. Thank you, Shaun. Of the run chase for now from Cricbuzz Live. That's all we have.